Hey, I'm Monica Neubauer, the Maverick Motivator. I'm going to do a several video series on buying your first house, basically, with a few other questions. My daughter asked me a question. She said, Mom, I want to see about buying an Airbnb in this town. And I was like, whoa, that's so complicated. So let's start at the very beginning. Where do you start when you want to buy a house, whether it's for an owner-occupied property or it's a property that you want to rent out? We'll get to the rental later. Right now, we're just talking about the very beginning. And that is, in order to get started, you need information. You need to know about lending and the market and so much about yourself that you may not be aware of either. So the beginning is a lender and a real estate agent. Those two people are the professionals to help you buy a house, and you need to get one of each. Now, all real estate agents and all lenders are not created equal. And in a second, I'm going to give you a list of 5 questions to ask and consider while you're interviewing these people. But let me just state first. Well, the first question is, how long have they been in the business? Now, I want to talk about that for a minute because newer does not mean they're not a good agent. And 30 years in the business also does not mean they are a good agent, okay? There's so much more to that. There are people who've been in the industry a really long time who are amazing and take care of you, and there's some that are just tired and they don't do as good a job explaining things to you. They're not as patient. And new agents, some of them are, quite frankly, very ignorant of what's happening in the industry, and yet some of them have come right in, leveled up, and they are right on top of it. So it's more about how they take care of you and how knowledgeable they are than about how many years they've been in the business. Though I do think that's a good question to start with, is how many years have you been in the business? And then ask them what their systems are based on their experience. Now, with your lender in particular, are they setting up a consultation with you? And when they do, are they explaining all the programs? I'm going to do a separate program about the different kinds of financing, which I am not an expert in. You're going to want to talk to a lender. But I want to at least open your eyes to the fact that there are lots of kinds of financing, and you want to make sure your lender is giving you all the options. I want to teach you how to ask better questions. So we'll get to that. And with your realtor, they should also give you a list of lots of things and what are your options. You want to know what is available in the market, and once you get your price down, you want to know a lot of things, and I'm going to get into that into my questions. So you also want to have a consultation with the real estate agent. If they don't have a good consultation with you, they really don't know what you want. And because of the fast-paced market we've had, a lot of agents are not giving the buyers the consultation they've needed. So that's kind of a first checkpoint. So let's run through these questions. As I mentioned, number 1 is, how long have you been in the industry? And a follow-up question with that could be, great, what are your systems for helping someone like me? What is the process they go through? What's the detailed, itemized list of actual services they're performing for you? And you can ask them that. What are the services that are part of your business that you will give to me if I hire you to help me in the transaction? You want to know the services they're going to perform for you. And agents who have not thought through this and who don't really know what they're going to do will fumble at that point. And so that's going to be a good thing. Have they practiced letting you know what they do and what they do for you? All right. Number 2, a good question here to gauge their excitement in the industry is, what kind of continuing education have you had? Now, in every state, real estate agents, and let me make a quick note here, real estate agents do not equate to realtors. Realtors are a member of their local association, their state association, and ultimately the National Association of Realtors. You can be a real estate professional and not be a realtor. And if they're not a realtor, the question is, what kind of MLS access do they have? Multiple listing service access. Because that's one of the things that often goes along with association membership. All right, back to my other item about continuing education. All real estate professionals need a certain amount of continuing education, every 1 or 2 years. And honestly, the state required amount is low in most states. And I'm very sad to say that the majority of people are now getting that education somewhere online without an instructor and without the peer engagement that is so helpful in a classroom. How do I know this? I teach a lot of real estate agents, and I see various numbers of attendees coming to the class. I'm paying attention to this. And when they take online education, it may not be a bad course, but it's not going to give them the current day-to-day touch points, hot points of the market that you would get when you come to class. If they're just getting the basic continuing education, they're probably not going to have the best outlook for you. They're not going to be the most well-informed. You want to look for opportunities for them to be learning from their brokerage firm, and are they attending state conferences that may not have continuing education? Like, you can go to the National Association Conference and you can go to some state conferences. Some of the classes are CE and some are not. So ask them what kind of education. Look for extra designations that they've gotten where they've invested their time to learn more about the industry. All right, question number 3 is, what are the best ways for me to get in touch with you, and what is your accessibility for communication? Now, I don't want your agent or your lender to be available 24 hours because I want them to have a life. However, I want them to be able to clearly state to you the best methods of communication and to have that conversation with you about, is it texting, is it phone, email, how are we going to use these, what's your preference, what's their preference, and what are the hours of business, and when is it worth pushing those boundaries to get what you might need in off-hour times. So have that conversation with them and find out how they respond. Confident agents who run a strong, busy business will have an answer for you that's more clear and well-defined than an agent who's kind of floundering a little bit in their business. Okay, these next 2 are not questions you're going to ask them, but questions you're going to be looking for. And number 4 is, do they sound like they want to learn about you, or do they just want to talk about me? It's all about me. I want them to ask you lots of questions to learn about you. They will need to tell you some things about themselves, especially if you ask them good questions, but are they asking you lots of questions about you and your needs in this situation? So that's number 4. Number 5 is, are they having a straight up realistic conversation with you about the market and what they do in the market? Because if they're not being honest with you about what's happening in the market for your good or for your challenge, like, I'm going to say some dates here because these videos will live on for a long time. In 2020, 2021, 2022, we've had this fast-paced market and things moved really fast. And a lot of people, they did kind of get to understand the market. But if an agent didn't tell you how hard it was to get a house, they weren't doing you a service. Well, now we're in the rising interest rate of 2022. Are people talking to you about the difference that the rising interest rate can make in your purchasing power? Your lender should be talking to you about that, and so should your real estate professional. So these 5 questions can go for your real estate professional and for your lender, because I want to make sure that you get someone who's going to do a good job for you. You're paying them, or they're being paid in the transaction, a lot of money, and I want to make sure you get good service. So let me recap them really quickly. 1, how long have you been in the industry, and what services do you provide as a secondary to that one? 2, what kind of continuing education have you gotten in the last 5 years? Where are you getting your training to keep up with the market? 3, what are the best ways for me to get in touch with you, and how do you like to communicate? What are your business hours? What kind of parameters do you set? Number 4 is, do they sound like they want to learn about you, or do they just want to talk about themselves? And number 5, are they educating you about the current real estate market and the current lending situation? So take those questions and go out there and find somebody who can really help you strong. And if you need an agent in Tennessee, I have a website that has lots of amazing agents throughout the state of Tennessee. You can find them at realestatetennessee.com, all spelled out. I'll put it down in the comments there in my bio. And you can find me at monicaneubauer.com. And watch Watch and stay tuned for the next videos in these series.